Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Audiovisual Cultures. I'm the host and creator, Paula Blair, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Simon Ward, Associate Professor in the School of Modern Languages and Cultures at University of Durham. We caught up at Newcastle's Tyneside Cinema over a screening of Christian Petzold's adaptation of Transit, about a German man fleeing a fascist regime spreading from Germany to France. And while trying to get transit papers in Marseille, he falls in love with the widow of the writer whose identity he assumes. Huge thanks to members on patreon.com/avcultures and to everyone listening, sharing and engaging on social media. I'll have more details for how you can get in touch and support at the end. Do enjoy this spoilerific discussion with Simon.
So obviously, Paula, you've not seen a film Christian Petzold before, whereas I've taught one or two of them for many years now, and I'm much more attuned to the kind of style, the kind of manner, the kind of cinematic references that are going on there that someone with a relative knowledge of German film will pick up. I mean, they're pretty iconic images. But I suppose what we were just saying there was Petzold starts writing about contemporary, or making films about, he's an auteur in the old tradition really in many ways. He starts making films about contemporary Germany and shift from traditional social structures to a more fluid, what we call neoliberal society, and investigating those structures. And there's a fantastic moment right at the end of the film. So these are spoiler alerts, although if you can read German, the spoiler's there at the very start of the film. When we're dramatically focusing on the fact that the ship has gone down, the shot is actually is of the man doing the labour of loading up the van, who's clearly not from Marseille, he's clearly an immigrant or illegal or some kind of worker who's simply operating in that system. And that's very Petzold, and Petzold learned that from Ferrocchi, that the focus is on labour. Focuses on the world of labour, and that's what you've got to have in your image. Your image has to always try and do justice to the fact that there is labour involved here. So the image is kind of true, even though we're being carried along by the melodramatic kind of focus on the fact that the boat's gone down and how lucky, unlucky, etc., everyone is, or how random this whole situation is. That's a very, very Petzoldian Ferrocchi moment. It's something that's where he kind of learned it from. But I suppose what I was trying to say, and I'm rambling here, was that he moves from contemporary Germany in the last two films to historical material. So the previous film, Phoenix, was about a Holocaust survivor, and so returns to that very typical German material. And this is obviously very historical as well, but then completely plays with your mind by setting a film or a novel that's set in 1940, then seems to be playing out
today,
in the present.
Or in the 90s maybe, because nobody uses mobile phones. But other than that, it looks completely
No, it's
contemporary.
really weird. The clothing is sometimes 30s, 40s. Certainly the central characters seem to be operating in that kind of dress code. No mobile phones, you're absolutely right. But obviously the police state that's operating. Again, Petzold is so aware of the images that we are contemporarily confronted with. And what he's doing is, there's probably a lot of Brecht in here as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that, the distanciation, but just the basic things like framing characters with their back fully, and that taking up most of the frame.
Yeah, it's a lot of Fassbinder. There's a scene where they're in the there's any number of romantic scenes, but I can't remember which scene it is now. It was only 10 minutes ago, but there's a scene where the two of them are, I can't remember who it is, but it's a male-female two, and just behind are a sailor and a woman who are engaging in, well, they're just kissing as it were. And there's a lovely scene probably in Marriage of Maria Brown, which again is right at the core of this. If you think about Maria's obsession with her husband, although that's already in the novel, it's also at the core of where Petzold's saying. Anyway, that kind of thing. There's a lovely scene where, I think it's in Maria Brown, or maybe somewhere else, I've watched too much Fassbinder, where there's kind of like a sexual congress going on in the background, really disrupting what you're supposed to be focusing on. So yeah, there's lots of that. So, it's only sort of 15 minutes. I found that quite intense.
Yeah.
It's really intense because, I mean, we were sitting right at the front, so there's no one between you and the images, as it were. I just think at this time, today, and it's just funny when you have people on the film saying in 2 weeks it's going to be chaos here, and they obviously mean that social cohesion is about to break down, and it's already broken down in so many ways. The lack of trust between the French and the Germans who are passing through and so on. That all just seems a bit close to the bone.
Yeah, it's fascinating watching it in the UK at the minute, and this film is from 2018 and we're getting it in cinemas and general release in 2019.
Yes. Well, it's actually filmed in 2017.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of, well, it's not out of date.
I mean, it must have, because it's fascinating hearing how Brexit conversations are being had in Europe, in these countries, and we're in the middle of it, and it feels very similar. It just felt like a mirror, like what we're able to do right now is sit and have a drink and a chat.
In a transitional space?
In a transitional space, yeah. We can watch the street through the window, the alleyway actually, technically, and see passers-by.
There's a lot of that in the film, and so much normality. Obviously, one of the things I said before that I'm obsessed with is the way Petzold uses cars, and I almost think that he wanted to set in the present so he could have lots of cars.
Yeah, the cars are very contemporary, they're very now cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But precisely this normality, the fact that this society is breaking down, there is, let's call it a fascist takeover. I mean, obviously in the south of France with the Vichy regime as well, even if we think about the historical moment, so many people seem to be conducting a kind of normal existence, and this subgroup of people who are semi-visible, for whom this is existential.
Yeah.
This is grim. Brexit conversations, though.
I know, it's just going to encompass everything, but you wonder how conscious that is in the filmmaking. I mean, it's a transnational film in that it's German and French. Yeah. You've got a lot of Germans and other foreign nationals speaking French a lot of the time in the film, but it feels very much like we're watching this in the UK because it's going to be on general release because we haven't left yet, and Europa Cinemas still have their deal here. I don't know what's going to happen with that in a few months' time.
Yeah, superb, absolutely spot on.
But it feels like, well, obviously it's going to be on release here. It's going to be seen here. It's going to be seen by people like us here.
Oh, yeah, sadly.
Lefty liberals and probably nobody else.
Yeah.
How conscious is that? I'd love to know that with the director. I mean, it's obviously probably a really tiny thing because Germany is still dealing with.
Sorry, but you're absolutely right. I mean, Germany, we can't call it that because there are certain phrases in German you can't use, like the Jewish question. That already loads the fact that there is a question about people who happen to be Jewish. And so in Germany you don't talk about the Jewish question because that's a racist framing. And also in Germany there is a debate about immigration, but again that's also a problematic way of describing it. And Petzold is also looking to intervene in that because there is considerable populist agitation against immigrant populations in Germany. I mean, there always has been. There were problems around the time of unification. There has always been, and there always is, but it's now being popularly mobilised. So it's not an intervention in the Brexit debate. It's an intervention in a debate about how we think about others, I suppose, as ever. And us lefty liberals know what we think and know where we're coming from on that.
We know it's the benefit of looking back. We know that it's migrant workers that rebuilt Germany very much as migrant workers seem to rebuild everywhere. I suppose I'm thinking from this point of view of what's our future history going to be of this moment, and I can't really escape that because it's so massive in our lives and it's a huge question mark. So we're looking at today, there are so many shades of 1930s Germany in the UK at this moment that it's very
difficult.
Not
just the UK.
Exactly. So it's important that a film like this is circulating everywhere, but how much are we really learning if it's just in an echo chamber of...
Yeah, okay, one of the things I would say not in Petzold's defence, but there is no hero here. I've read the novel, but I can't remember the novel that well. Yeah. But what's happening obviously in the film is you've got this voice coming in which seems to be a novel that's already rewritten, so in a sense it's a story foretold. But in a sense you're right, it could be described as too intelligent, too clever for its own good. Is this what we worry about? Now I think, to be fair, what Petzold tries to do, and he does this in all his films, is construct a plot which will draw us in and supposed to work on but again, is it too clever? It's a bit like Fassbinder, who will use melodramatic plots as a kind of structuring device to draw you in to the deeper politics. But again, and that's what I wonder, whether Petzold isn't too stuck actually in his admiration for New German cinema and for the kind of hopes for what you might hope film to do. There's too much expectation, too much weight placed on the capacity of film to generate critique or critical thought. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because it's a bit mind-bending in terms of time, because, like, as we've said, the vehicles are quite contemporary. Not just the cars, but I thought what was supposed to be the Montreal at the end, the ship, it looks like a contemporary cruise ship. And it looks like they've just filmed that. You know, it's documentary footage of an actual cruise ship leaving Marseille Harbour.
That's right.
That very much inflects it with this is happening right this minute.
But also precisely because the boats that go down don't get knocked down by mines.
Yeah.
They go down in the Mediterranean because they're not built to cross the Mediterranean. Now, again, but you have to be thinking with Petzold on so many levels to come with him.
And if you don't know him, because was totally empty.
I think one of the things he tries to do is to question our convention. So, I mean, these are tourists. Marseille, there's some times where you'll have kind of picture postcard images, but I think these, again, you see, it's one of those things where it looks somewhere between a tourist experience and a migrant experience.
It's very sunny. It looks very pleasant.
Where's the Mistral? The Mistral, which is causing Driss to be ill, doesn't really seem to...
No, and the cafe seems quite open for anybody to go to. This regular...
I think I think, where are you going with that thought?
It's just an observation. It's just, you know, it's clear that they're German.
Yeah.
They have an accent, they can't really hide it.
It's funny but that Germanness is really, and that's why, I don't know if you heard it, but he's got a kind of speech defect.
He does,
He has a speech defect. And there's a lot about language in here, and that again brings us back to Wenders, it brings us back to New German cinema, which was obsessed with language. Sorry, I'm being in lecture mode here.
But then there's Melissa and Driss. Where were they from?
The Maghreb.
The Maghreb. But his mother is deaf-dumb.
Yeah.
There's another layer of translation. So he's German speaking French to the boy. The boy's translating into sign language.
But he has a German dad, presumably. Heinz.
Yeah, it seems to have a German dad.
Yeah, seems to have a German.
And then, so the boy is, and again, it's so important that it's a child thing. A child is this receiver and transmitter for different languages for adults communicating with each other, because he has to be the intermediary.
So for anyone listening to this, you have to go and watch Alice in the Cities by Wim Wenders, where the boy's eating the ice cream outside a cafe. There is a sequence that is absolutely in Alice in the Cities, which is one of my favourite films, which is a film about an older man with a younger child travelling lost in Europe. But again, that comes in the mid-70s, and so is historically placed. It's actually closer to 1940. Wenders' film, which is 74, is almost closer to 1940 than Petzold's film is to Wenders' film.
And it's important because it's now actually integral to the refugee crisis that's been ongoing for several years now, all over Europe, and if people manage to get to the UK as well. So you've got the children who are learning the languages quickly and translating for their parents.
And becoming as well as intermediaries.
That is actually their real lives. And they're becoming highly skilled. You're seeing all these really lovely news stories about kids who come, and English is maybe their third or fourth language, and then they're killing it at their exams. They're absolutely just smashing it.
Well, you don't need to talk to me about the benefits of learning a foreign language. But again, that is so invisible, and that is generally presented in the, and I'm not going to use the word mainstream media, but essentially the conventional perspective is this is a problem, that we have children whose English is not the first language in our schools, and yet we have...
They're teaching us.
And it's happening invisibly, really, and I do think that's one of the things that Petzold tries to do, is trying to make certain things visible that aren't always particularly visible in... And this is where he's coming out from the kind of critique of Farocki. That Farocki is a critique of the conventional media images that we get on a daily basis that we're fed.
I think it's interesting as well that it's a reminder that white people are also considered to be refugees, or have been at some point in history. And they're not just brown people, but we today in 2019 consider refugee to mean brown person, and that hasn't historically always been the case. White people are also cruel to other white people.
One of the things that very much belongs to the novel in the period is you have middle class Jews
Yeah.
who have been displaced.
Exactly, yeah.
And are being, so you have the woman with the dogs and you have the doctor, both of whom come from middle class backgrounds.
And that's Syria today, because the people who make it here are wealthy people.
Yeah, exactly. They have been.
Yeah.
They are they are educated. They have a lot of skills and abilities. And again, the perspective we tend to think we have is very simplistic.
Yeah, and it's just an important reminder that actually it knows no colour. There's discrimination of so many different kinds, and actually if you're a refugee, if you find yourself as a refugee, how far you manage to get can depend on what your economic background may be.
Well, this doctor has 5,000 in the film. The doctor has 5,000 whatever
to just give to someone.
Although we didn't mention the currency.
No, they just said it because of course values are going to have changed, and because then we can imagine it as euros or francs or whatever, or units in some future history. Is it weird that towards the end there were certain sequences that were reminding me of La Jetée?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's a long time since I've engaged with La Jetée.
There were just something about this circling time and the image of this same woman, when Marie comes back again, but it's not really her, it's him imagining her, but it just, I don't know why, it just made me think of...
No, well, to be honest, I think, Petzold's much more cine literate than I am. And you can pretty much take for granted that if he is bringing Chris Marker into play, he will be. But that's also our problem, isn't it, with these directors who know so much and have watched as much cinema, if not much more cinema than we have, is it becomes that kind of reference spotting.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm already guilty of it already. But I would make an argument for the lineage there being important, that he's placing himself in. I think he'll be placing himself in that lineage of experimental filmmaking. Now, that's what's interesting about Petzold. That's what makes all his films really interesting, is they are generically satisfying. You've got a melodrama, you've got a story, you can enjoy it for the 2 hours, but there's food for thought there.
I suppose it's that idea of, because I'm going in and I know basically nothing about the film, whereas you're very familiar with the novel, and there were times when I was questioning, is this the Second World War or is this a future war?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was the zombie reference.
Yeah, exactly.
That was...
There was a reference to Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it was very...
Well, I think... Sorry.
Mild, it was implied as well. Like, it was obvious if you know it, but it was something that you could imagine somebody in the 50s or 40s just saying off the cuff one day.
Well, it's funny, in that world then, I think what you can't do is try and apply consistency to it, and I think that's quite deliberate. Okay. There is that mixture of time levels. So let's come back to Mark. Time is kind of the logic of history, that there's some kind of progress and that we move forward and we leave stuff behind. We're actually dealing with the traces of a haunted Europe here in so many ways, which are present every port city you go to. They are there. What were you saying, Paula? You was the anachronism. This is then a film. This is a world in which Dawn of the Dead exists, but Casablanca doesn't. Apparently, because there's no way this film exists in fact. So it replays Casablanca. The boy lets the other guy go off with a girl, but at the same time, and this is Petzold's point always, capitalism drives it. So it's not presented as a heroic act. It's presented as an act whereby he's got $5,000, francs, euros from it. So it's very clear that there are economic transactions going on all the time. It's weird because I was wondering, my feeling was there's a moment where it shifts into genre mode, and it's the moment where the two of them are sitting on the bed, and up to that point it's been kind of, you've been paying attention to the kind of contemporary politics and the raids, and suddenly now it's a love story. And it's almost like Petzold almost decides, and it's almost so clunky you think this is a bit nonsense, where it suddenly becomes the love story. And there's a scene, and again another Maria Brown scene. So go and watch Marriage of Maria Brown.
Just been too long, I saw it a long time ago.
Okay, well there's a scene where who comes back from the war, Mr. Brown, because I can't remember his name. Mr. Brown comes back from the war, and he finds Maria in bed with a black guy, American GI, and then there's a fight, and
she hits
that guy over the bed, and then Mr.
Yeah.
Brown goes to prison for his wife having anyway. No, it's almost exactly. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. But it was that genre. It was almost like, right, we need something to keep the movie going now because it's not going anywhere.
those pair, I don't know, there was something very photogenic about them. There's a lot of the images are very pretty, even though it's quite gritty stuff, it's pretty because it's very contemporary photography. It's that digital
yes, very bright.
Yeah, very bright, sunny. There's graffiti everywhere, but it looks artistic. It doesn't look grotty.
That's and I do think that's really interesting in terms of the shots of Marseille. And I think you could imagine a critique of the film or a criticism of the film, which says actually this isn't what Marseille looks like. You know, I mean that area where Driss and his mother live, really quite clean.
Doesn't seem like a ghetto.
No, it doesn't. I mean, so in a sense, and this would always be a question, surely our favourite bit, but this brings us back to our favourite bit, when he's being asked, you know, why aren't you going to go and write about this stuff? And that's also the new German cinema again, because it's my favourite bit of the film. There's no question it's my favourite bit of the film, where he says, oh yeah, we went on a trip and we had to write an essay about it, a school essay, and we went on a trip. It's almost like you've been to the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum. It always deserves a shout out. That's sort of the point, is that, you know, he doesn't want to have to make social conscience films. He doesn't want to have to do an essay about this. And so the criticism which comes at him that it's not Ken Loach, it's not gritty enough, it doesn't look gritty. Oh, sorry, my other favourite bit was he says, no, I don't want to be a writer, I want to be a film and TV technician. Yeah. And those are three very important concepts, I think. So not an artiste, but a workman, an engineer, someone who makes stuff work. So it's not about being an artist.
It's about being a transmitter again, getting the radio working.
Yes, absolutely spot on. But also that you're a technician. You're rather than being someone who, the romantic imaginary of the poet who dreams up all this stuff, you're actually working with a set of materials which you have to engineer in a certain way to construct a film. So film as industry, as a kind of engineering exercise, I think is...
For the workforce.
Yeah, I think that's very essential to his view of the world, the way he's making this film.
I was thinking as well, just on your previous point, when he's at his hotel and the woman gets dragged out and they're all standing around, and this narrator, we should talk about this narrator as well.
Yes, we should.
He sort of observes that, well, what we all felt was shame because they're just standing there watching, so it's the bystander. Is that what you're saying then, that the filmmaker has decided to take on the bystander persona and to not get involved, but there's observing, there's an active witness, but a decision to not get involved.
Not to, as it were, take a party, or I'm going to use Ken Loach's name in vain here, and it's very unfair, but not to take a kind of partisan view on this, or a kind of moral stance.
Make a clear stand.
Make a clear moral, to have a clear moral position, which, and not the writer, so that the filmmaker is someone whose job it is to make us witness these images and make us see something like the My Immigrant Problem. I think I shouldn't describe it like that. You know, that make the questions around immigration, see them afresh, see them as something really complex that anyone can end up in this scenario. It's not us and them. Because the people who are looking shameful are also refugees.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like there's a lovely scene at the start where there was a woman on the street saying, there, he went that way.
Yeah.
You know, French collaboration, as it were, with the security forces.
But at what point does she become the person they're looking for?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's the question.
No, I think that's right. And again, you know, it can almost hit anyone. So there's no we don't really get any sense of why our central figure is on the run. We don't get any sense of a particular political affiliation.
He has no real identity. He takes on somebody else's very quickly.
I mean, this is the novel's written by a woman originally, and so there's
Anna Segers,
who went to Mexico herself eventually. So there's something really quite interesting, and she was closely affiliated with the communists, but she's much more the figure of the writer who's committed suicide than the central figure. The bystander then becomes the bloke this is also a bit of a reveal, this narrator figure who then is revealed at the end to be the waiter, and I use the word waiter deliberately there. Yeah. It doesn't work in German, that joke, unfortunately. But the waiter is the one who's actually on the other side of the bar. So we're all in the same space. And the waiter is obviously someone who is economically bound into a certain structure where he's reliant on the refugees coming in and eating his food to keep him in a job. That was a really interesting moment, because I think as immediately our lefty liberal positions is to say, all right, we recognise that we have some shame at being bystanders, but these bystanders are also people who are caught up in this history, in this mess. They haven't escaped. They're not free. They're in the same corridor.
Yeah.
And they're next.
They just changed the goalposts. And that's what we're seeing today as well. The goalposts keep moving.
Yeah.
With the Home Office here. This might just be a silly, nerdy thing. I don't know how significant it is, but I noticed at one point in the cafe, the pizza of the day was the Neapolitan.
I'm glad. Well, no, but everything. No, but the mise en scène. He's
so important.
There are nods towards the novel in terms of when we're outside the flat or the apartment where Tris and his mother live.
Okay.
There's a thing that says boulevard. It's not a boulevard. It's a housing estate or what we call a project or whatever. There's tremendous. I'm afraid for those of us who are a bit nerdy, there's incredible attention to detail there.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with a Petzold film. You can dig away at the mise en scène as much as you want, and it's always a problem because again, he's tickling our tummies, as it were. He's giving us us cinephiles, a bit of fun amidst the gloom.
It is quite pleasurable though, noticing references, and especially with an adaptation. You know, a lot of people say, oh well, the book's always better than the film. But for people who really love film adaptations, it's just an opportunity to be an absolute geek about how much stuff you notice.
Adaptation is actually a really important thing here because, in a sense, Petzold is working with a novel which already exists. So all this stuff in the film about the story's already told, it's all fatalistic. In a sense, he's got a script. He can't get away from the fact that this story's already been written, and he's kind of hamstrung by it. Well, not hamstrung, but there are certain boundaries he can't escape from. And then, to come back to your point, the narrator. It's really annoying when the narrator... Did you not find? When the narrator first comes in, you think, hold on, is this going to destroy the tone of the film?
Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering, but it feels like it starts quite late in the film.
It's about 20 minutes in, I'm sure. Absolutely.
And so then how reliable is what you're saying at any point? Is it his imagining of what he feels he's been told? Is it in German? Or is
the narrator is in German, which again is also very interesting. Because that would imply that the narrator behind the bar is probably a refugee himself. And therefore also or implicated in.
I should have paid more attention because were they speaking French in the parts where we saw them speaking together, or were they speaking German?
Well, that's one of the things you could have a lot of fun with, I suspect, in looking at this film, if you really wanted to.
When you're just concentrating on reading subtitles the whole time, you can lose a bit of track. I mean, I know the difference between French and German because the French I understand some of it.
Well, obviously I understand the German more than the French. And the film is, I think, totally aware what it's doing and who's speaking what and who can speak when. I mean, there's probably something to do with accent as well, because our central figure with the speech impediment, compared to the cut glass German of the woman with the dogs, there's all sorts of tensions there, I think, which are embedded in the language and can't be avoided. You know, at these points you begin to think, what time zone is this anyway? So when the guy's going on about Borussia Dortmund and all these bits of German he's learned, now how has he learned that?
Small child,
listening to the radio. I don't know. I mean, these days you'd say it was a Champions League,
but then maybe from his father, you imagine, and if his father's ref and he's been.
Do you know that's also another reference to a really terrible film.
Residues.
There's a really terrible film called The Miracle of Bern.
Okay.
Never watch it, anyone, please. But it was made in 2002, and it remembers Germany, West Germany, winning the World Cup in 1954.
Okay.
And it's about a father and a son relationship, and the son's obsessed with football.
Yeah. Do you know Marge and Maria Braun is at the end of the radio?
You've done it. You've absolutely.
Because I was thinking about that.
Oh, that is so right.
Earlier.
The football references.
There's a football match on the radio at the very end of
the whole thing is just Marge and Maria Braun reworked. So, other things you noticed? Because it's more interesting what you think, because I'm kind of sitting all this catalogue and thinking, how can I teach this?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, for me, the lead actor, there was something about Joaquin Phoenix about him.
Right.
But also I noticed he has this scar on his mouth, which makes him very distinctive. And I mean, it's probably not relevant at all, but you wonder what decisions have been made in casting someone in this country, and certainly in America. That sort of person would be called a character actor.
Is that maybe cleft palate? I mean, I don't know. I don't know
I don't know if it's been surgery or an injury, but it was right up to his nose to his top lip.
I wonder. I don't know the actor. I never spotted him before, because it'd be interesting to see if that is, because if that's actually a surgical intervention or some kind of wound, if it's cosmetic or not. would actually be really interesting.
Yeah.
I would agree. What's interesting is in the earlier Petzold films, so contemporary films, what he's really trying to investigate is the kind of, well, in Britain we do it via David Brent in The Office, but in Germany they do it slightly more seriously. He's investigating the mindset of the middle manager, and so all those men are very clean cut, smooth and suited and work in offices, and so this is quite a different take. One thing you will do when you watch the other Petzold films, which I'll send you a list of recommended ones in order. As I mentioned before we went into this film, he has generally used Nina Hoss as his general central female character. She looks very much like the woman who was playing Marie in this film.
Okay.
Very similar. I don't know the backs, I haven't done any research on transit, so I don't know whether there's a reason why Nina Hoss, but the actress looks very, very similar shape, similar kind of, almost like, I wouldn't say he has a type, but there is a kind of, in the way that Fassbinder had Hanna Schygulla, and Hanna Schygulla was in almost all of Fassbinder's films. So he has a kind of actress he works with, and they have a very clear method then as well, always a very clear method. So it's interesting, in a sense the women have been much stronger in previous, have been much more at the centre of a lot of previous Petzold films. Certainly Phoenix, which is about a female Holocaust survivor. Barbara, which is about a woman existing in the GDR. Again, more historical material. And then some of the ones which are about middle managers, but also about women caught up in the neoliberal economic environment. So this was an interesting one, because I think it tells you probably quite a lot about the 1940s, in the sense that Anna Zegers didn't feel able to place a female character at the centre of this, the hero. There's a lot of Kafka in here. We'll see on the poster it'll say Kafka meets Casablanca.
Yeah.
Kafka had been first published in 26, so someone like Anna Zegers would be familiar with Kafka, and it is
the administrative.
Yeah, the administrative, the
constantly waiting around in massive queues for a bit of paper. Yeah.
Again, I love the way in which that's updated. Essentially it would look the same. It's just there's a number ticking over as your number comes up. So Kafka is very strong in Zegers' imagination, and obviously in Kafka it's a man who's at the centre of that. That's because Kafka's writing in 1913 and is full of male neurosis, but Zegers doesn't necessarily reflect on that when she's writing about, it's the problem of existential dramas being about men. We look at the poster there across the road.
Yeah, there's almost something a little bit, tiny bit Bond-like about it in one sense, where there's the single male figure, the woman sort of in the background, in the middle. Yeah, you can just about see her outline in his chest cavity.
Oh, you're absolutely sorry.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
So she's there, but she's not there.
But that's not the image you would, if you don't watch the film, that's not the image of the man you would take away with you.
Not at all, because he looks like, I am here for business.
He's bigger than the frame.
He's with the Venetian blinds, so it's a tiny bit noir.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I suspect there is a lot
but
more
that's
noir.
more like the marketing to get people in to see the film.
Yes, I fear that's the case.
And it's transit, but in that poster he's clearly inside somewhere. He's in a building and the blinds are down, so he's not actually moving, so there's no sense of, he can be transitory but not moving.
Yes.
There's that idea coming through. It looks quite slick, contemporary, modern.
It's interesting because it's not going to trap. I mean, it's interesting because it also doesn't, however, maybe there is something Bond-like about that. That's actually, in the sense of being
mercenary in a way, and what are the motivations for him doing any of the things that he does, because we never actually find out.
No, not at all.
He is quite a mystery. We can't even remember what his name is, because he very quickly takes on the identity of the guy who dies.
Yes.
Who's a writer and has a very clear, well-known identity, and that's by accident. He doesn't really need to do very much. He just turns up and people think that that's who he is.
Yes.
And so also that's a world where you could do that more easily than today.
Well, did you also notice the surveillance camera?
Oh, right.
That's a classic Petzold moment as well. Sorry, there was a bit when, and actually because this is what reminded me of it, when he was saying about the non-visibility. And I say, you don't see me anywhere, you don't see us anywhere. We're there, you don't see us anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's a view which is a CCTV camera. And it's ironic, and obviously the irony is you don't see us anywhere, and yet we're being perpetually surveilled.
We're always seen, seen but not seen.
He's having his cake and eating it. He's setting it in the past, but he's also having a little nod towards kind of surveillance systems, which you'll see elsewhere in his films. That's Farocki. Farocki does a whole load of work on surveillance.
Because again, it's what's to come in the 20th century.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really important way of thinking about the film, not just as a way of mixing past and present, but also to say the past is coming back to us, but also the things of the future were already there, and we're there now.
Yeah, because we think it's all new, but it's not.
And I suppose that's, as in this film, there is nothing new in this film. It's the plot of Casablanca. It's not a new film. It's based on an already existing story, so there's nothing new in a way. There's no claim towards originality here.
Yeah.
And I kind of forgave it in the end. And I forgave it because it was, as you said, as we walked out, time to the second. Because Road to Nowhere is... I don't know what Road to Nowhere is about. I mean, it's like one of those things that we grew up with.
It is,
and
yeah,
Petzold is our age, so it's my age, so it's not your age. You know, that's your teenage song. Talking Heads teenage song, mid-80s, we're on the road to nowhere.
And this is written by somebody who had what we would recognise today as very clear depression and was on a road to nowhere and was trying to tell us it's a cry for help, maybe?
Well, it's, again, what's it doing in this film? And what's its...
But is that a meeting point? What year did that song come out?
84.
That's the year I was born. 1984, Orwell.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, but I think that the problem for me is it's a song that I hear every day on Absolute 80s. It's actually
still with us.
It's still with us.
But it wasn't there yet. But yet it already was in a way.
Yes.
And it's pre-Berlin Wall.
Coming down.
But it's on the way to that. It's in the decade of that. It's coming.
It's
there's so maybe there's
it speaks to the anachronism of the film. I fully understand that. And then of course, so you have it's out of time, but it's also perfectly.
It's perfectly timed to the credits. The credits are perfectly timed to the full.
I knew he was going to do that as well. There was a bit I was thinking this song lasts 3 minutes 45 seconds or whatever, and you just know it's almost like light relief in a way because it's a bit of. I don't know, it felt...
Yeah, because you had quite an intense experience watching the film, and then you got tune.
Yes,
tune. I can dig it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's nostalgia. That's why I forgave it in the end. I think he's actually playing with nostalgia.
Yeah.
Do you remember this song from the 80s? We were going nowhere then. And also, and obviously from my work on cars, there's no roads in this film. I loved, by the way, sorry, this is just them chatting about them. I love the scene in the car, where they're in the taxi shows.
Yeah.
You always have to be aware with Petzold what kind of car it's taxis.
Yeah.
And normally when Petzold's filming cars, it will be someone driving, someone in the passenger seat, not looking at each other in kind of two different spaces. Very much cars are spaces of separation, quite often in his work. And here you have kind of the romantic climax, the romantic clinch, the two shot of them really tight in the car on the journey away. And of course it's all unravelling. And then it becomes claustrophobic.
Yes.
And then he has to get out.
Has to get out. You feel like you can't breathe
Yeah.
in that space with them. It's such a tight frame as well. You're right up close to them and they're so close to each other.
No.
They're almost like one entity. They're so close.
Yes.
I think finally they're going to get together and there's
the romantic resolution.
It feels like there's a release of tension and immediately there's just a huge spike of tension.
Yes.
Feels almost like if it had stopped at that point, it would have been quite Bunwellian or something, you know, where it would have sort of done a faux documentary. 2 days later, they were dead, you know, kind of thing.
Yes, utterly agree.
But actually, it makes you go through that with him.
Yeah, that's what I'd say about the filmmaker as well, is that he wants you to. I mean, again, I think he's learned this from Fassbinder. The emotional response, visceral response, is part of the political experience of cinema. That you are actually having an emotional response. That it's not just about you have to be going through something there while you're watching it and working with those emotions and doing something with those emotions, working through them, being forced exactly to. Uncomfortable. I mean, it's a really uncomfortable moment in that car, and that's why I love it because it's different again from. I've never seen him shoot a car scene like that. They're always about people like not communicating, or because if you're driving a car, then you're focused on driving a car rather than actually the person who's in there with you.
There's the train as well, which is right at the start.
I have a colleague who I'll not mention who works on Holocaust memorialization in German cinema and German literature actually, and her interest in that film will be in. And this again, I love this. It was fantastic. You have refugees in, well, I won't call them cattle trucks, but in non-standard accommodation, as it were. But that non-standard accommodation looks just like an empty office. Absolutely stunning. You're expecting, because if you think about German history and people being transported on trains, then there are obvious kind of resonances there. And those resonances are made clear fantastically at that bit where he says, what was the last thing you wrote? And he says this monologue about being on the way way to hell or already in hell. And at that point, Petzold goes back to the lines. And these are obvious kind of gestures, so without showing, without telling, gestures towards the broader thing that's happening in Europe from this point onwards. But I just thought that was really a fantastic choice to represent that travelling space as a kind of empty office space. Because all you see is the plug on the wall. You know, there's just like all the accoutrements of a kind of humanoid space. I mean, it's horrible. You know, it's really horrible. Yeah, absolutely horrible. I mean, so it's a deliberate choice not to say, look at the inhumane conditions under which these people are travelling. It's saying, look at the inhumane conditions under which we have to live. Like these little box spaces, which are our spaces in which we live and die. Slit windows, exactly, and then you open the window a bit and you're caught. And there's someone dying in that space. It reminded me of, have you ever seen Michael Winterbottom's film In This World?
No.
I love Winterbottom. I mean, he's probably best known now for things like The Trip.
Okay, yeah.
And like Rob Thingy and Steve Coogan going around Italy in their car. One of the things that Winterbottom also does, this is not really for the podcasters, but Winterbottom, when they go on the trip, so the first time I went on the trip was like round Lake District or something. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't, no, I know of it, yeah.
You should watch it because it's really interesting because there's basically two tossers playing up to their personality, their TV personalities. But what Winterbottom focuses, they go around and they eat in various places, and what Winterbottom then makes sure he does is he shows you how the food is made. So Winterbottom is very aware of the fact that there is labour involved. There's labour always invisible in all this kind of celebrity nonsense consumption. Winterbottom makes a film about, and it's pseudo-documentary. Well, I mean, that's obviously a very dodgy term. Shoot me down for that one, Paula. But it's handheld cameras and travelling with two kids, making their way from Peshawar, sort of East Pakistan, all the way through to the Channel Tunnel and then under the Channel Tunnel and into London, following this kid. And, you know, people dying in incarceration, in lorries. It's well worth the watch. It's probably like 20 years old or something now. But it just reminds us how this problem, and I use the word problem in inverted commas, how this situation has actually been with us for a long, long time. It's now part of our accepted normality. It reminded me of that. And I think if you wanted to, there are some, I mean, the novel is absurd because this idea that this woman is running around and seeing the Mexican consulate and then also somehow two and two are not being put together.
Never,
Your husband's got a funny speech impediment. Oh, what?
they never.
No, you've got to kind of, there's a degree of something fairy tale like that as well. And he's actually big into his fairy tales as well, Petzold, I think. Anything else, Paula, that struck you? No?
I think that'll do it.
I think that would.
I think that's exhausting enough. But no, it was a really great experience to watch it. I think it was good to go and watch it because I haven't been to the cinema very much this year at all.
Me no.
It was just nice to have a reminder that actually I do quite like German cinema, whether it's new or it's just German or whatever. Yeah. And I haven't seen any for quite a long time, and I've always got something out of it every time I have. So it was nice to have an excuse to be reminded of that. Yeah,
I don't get to cinema enough because of the nature of the structure of my life, and the only things I get to go are the things which other people want to see. This actually, I'm going to say this is like in 1987 U2 brought out the Joshua Tree, okay? Now, over the previous 3 years it's embarrassing now, we're back in the road to nowhere. Over the previous 3 years I got completely into the previous albums by this band. So when their new album came out, it was like a special treat. You know, you go down and the first time you listen to it, it's really something special. And ever since then, U2 have been shit.
On record.
After Joshua Tree comes Rattle and Hum, and from that point onwards, the new release of an U2, it now then appears on your bloody iPhone without you wanting it. What I think about Petzold is he's still making films. You know, there's no drop in quality. These are really.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's he's still hitting the mark as far as I can see. But Paula, it's been a pleasure.
Brilliant, thank you, Simon.
You've been listening to Audiovisual Cultures with me, Paula Blair, and my very special guest, Simon Ward. This episode was recorded and edited by Paula Blair, and the music is Common Ground by Airtone, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 and available for download from ccmixter.org. If you like the show and find its content useful and interesting, please help cover production and distribution costs by donating to paypal.me/PEA Blair or liberapay.com/PEA Blair. Episodes are released every other Wednesday. Please do rate, share and subscribe on your chosen listening platform, as this helps others find the show. For more information, visit audiovisualcultures.wordpress.com and follow AV Cultures on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for listening and catch you next time.